Welcome to Mpowered Living. I'm Ann Sheu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Sandy and Dave, I'm so excited to have you guys here with us today. Will you just tell us a little bit about your background and your family?
Here we go. Yeah, so we started in our relationship when we were in college, just as friends, and got married a couple weeks after I graduated college, and that was been over 35 years ago now. Mm-hmm. So we had kids, 4 years in? Mm-hmm. We had our first son, who is 31 now. And we kept on having kids, and we have 6 children, ages 31 down to 20, 5 boys and a girl.
And 2 precious daughter-in-laws, but no grands yet. But we're hopeful.
But we're not bitter.
No.
I mean, she could be just a tad bitter.
No. But we're hopeful.
Thank you for sharing that. What have been some of the hard moments? I mean, like on the outside, it looks like you guys have this incredible, beautiful, perfect life, and you've been able to juggle the 6 kids with homeschooling and juggling all of that with work and really doing the impactful, important work that you guys are doing. But tell me about the behind the scenes. What does it look like? What's the real and the raw and some of the challenges that you've faced along the way?
Oh man, which challenge to start with? I think about, we went through a season, we lost all 4 of our parents at a young age, really. So it's been, how long since your mom, our last parent?
It's been 11 years, but like the challenging thing was we were raising little kids, like parenting small children, pregnant, and caring for our dying parents at the same time.
And that was a real challenge. Our number 6 was, I was 3 months along with him when my dad passed away, and my mom had passed away just less than 2 years before that. So it's just having those overlapping seasons and feeling like so many people need you. And oh my goodness, I'm caring for children at the time. Dave was pastoring about a 450 member church, and I was homeschooling, and it was just like, it was kind of an overwhelming time for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like so much. So what did you do in those moments to help you survive or thrive? I don't know, when you look back now, do you feel like you were just in survival mode, or and what did you do to get through those moments?
Yeah, there were definitely moments where it was just, I would tell Dave, a lot of prayer, but I would tell Dave, I can only do what's in front of me right now. I can't even think about the next thing. I can just do what's in front of me. But I think one of the saving graces for us during that time was we knew that we had to prioritize having some time together. Mm-hmm. Even no matter if we had 2 kids or 6 kids, we found a way. And, kids and sick and dying parents, they are going to take your time. They need your time. But we had to make the time for our relationship. And it was such a priority. We had to make that time. Yeah.
What would you do to make that time, though? Because we talk to our clients a lot about making sure that you get away as a couple, even if it's just for a lunch. And I think for so many of our clients, it's hard for them to wrap their heads around, like, how can I even just get away for 30 minutes to go on a walk with my spouse? And so what would you do to find that time and get coverage for your kids and make sure that that was a priority for you guys?
Yeah, several things. So one thing we would do is, pretty much no matter what was going on, one of our sacred cows, I guess. It's one of those things that we wouldn't give on unless it was really a crisis, was like every day at the end of the workday, we would try to spend 15 minutes sitting down together, just reconnecting and communicating. And this could be controversial, but I mean, we would even do this like before I spent like significant time with the kids after a long work day. I would spend the first 15 minutes with Sandy and I talking. And the kids knew because we communicated this to them often. Like, this is because we love each other and our relationship is a priority, but it's also because we love you, because we have to be the best husband and wife that we can be to each other so we can be the best parents to you. It's like the old thing of you're in an airplane and the oxygen mask drops. What are you going to do? You take care of yours first so you can help other people. So we would prioritize that daily time together. So that was very sacred. And when we had littles, we would
Save
we
their
would
favorite
save their
toy.
favorite thing to do for that time. So there's not going to be any, no, I don't want to, So that's one way that you made that a priority, right? Is like save their favorite thing that's going to occupy them the most, where they'll be the happiest for that time.
And they would be in the room with us, doing their thing. But we would say, you can't bother mommy and daddy right now. This is our talk time. So you play. Mommy and daddy are going to talk. And two, for the littles that, don't have the maturity to think abstractly yet, when they go to bed at night, their world ends. When they wake up in the morning, their world begins. They're not laying in bed thinking, oh, mom and dad are spending quality time together. They don't have the ability to do that. So this was a tangible way that they could see they got something going on, and that makes me feel safe and secure.
Yeah, I mean, we would see like behavior issues sort of ebb and flow with when there were seasons maybe where we didn't do as good at keeping that, like when her mom was passing away. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
So just like that seemed to bring some stability into their lives is like, and it's opposite of what we think sometimes. It's like, oh, I just need to make everything about them so they'll feel good about themselves. But that like they don't always know what's best for them, right? Especially at 2. Like if you let them run their lives, it's going to be chaos, right? So just that tangible reminder that mom and dad have something special going on. They're solid. They're good. I can sleep well at night because I don't have to worry about whether things are okay. And I know that may sound a little bit involved for what a small child may be thinking, but we just believe that there were some thoughts like that going on. And like, wow, our kids sleep better at night when we're doing a better job of prioritizing that 15 minutes talking together at the end of the workday. We just saw a difference. So that was one thing. Another thing was date night. Every single week that we possibly could, we would do a date night.
Yeah, and probably when we had the first 3 to 4, it might end up more like every other week. But if we could do every week, we could. It was a game changer when our oldest could start watching the youngers. It was like, financially and just practically speaking, that happened.
But we would
Before
do,
that,
I mean,
before your oldest was old enough, you would just hire a babysitter and go out. So
we never got to live near parents, which was sad. We didn't have that family help. So we had to hire a babysitter. And a lot of times we would just make our date like that started. We would let them see the babysitter, put them to bed, and then go out. So the babysitter's just sitting there watching TV. I mean, it's not much for them to do. And another thing I was going to say about that, routine, it was a lifesaver for us. Because when we lived in a flow of routine and then tragedy struck or a major health crisis or something happened, they were used to the routine. And that routine gave me sanity. By nature, oh, you want to go somewhere? Let's go. That's more my personality. But the more kids I had, the more focus I had to get on the routine. But it provided a regular ebb and flow that when hard things came in, it made them go so much smoother.
What are some unique pieces of your routine that maybe other families might not be thinking about?
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of different thoughts and ideas about sleep training and this and that, so I won't get into that unless you want me to. But Yeah, yeah, maybe we won't go there. But we did, I can go with this. We did have a certain bedtime.
Yeah.
So, and that changed as the kids got older. But also during the day, like once the kids gave up their nap, once they got where they weren't having a nap, we had an hour every day. Didn't matter how old you were, it was room time. So you could do something quietly in your room and read books or whatever, play game. And it just provided that hour a day of peace for mom
Yeah.
that, I knew that that hour everyone was well taken care of.
Yeah.
And if I need to flip through a magazine or read a book or start preparing dinner or talk to a girlfriend, I knew I had that time. And that really helped so much. And we had regular dinner time to kind of according to when Dave was coming home from work. So we would all sit at the table and eat dinner. And that was pretty routine until, and of course, soccer and sports, we had to adjust on those nights for different dance recital, all that kind of stuff that kids do. But if we were at home, we were there together at the table. And that was a routine thing.
What do you guys do for dinner time as far as any types of conversations? Do you have any traditions around what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, we find that the most teachable moments are the teachable moments. Like it didn't work as well for us to try to
Force it.
force the conversation,
Yeah.
but just really listening to what's going on at the table and like what the kids' minds are on, and then just trying to jump on those things with whatever wisdom you can use, or just to guide the conversation in a way that's healthy and good. Well, there were some frustrating times at the dinner table,
Yeah.
where it's like, what do you do? Like kids are they're kind
Melting
of going at
down.
each other, they're melting down. I remember sometimes trying to lead the conversation in a constructive way, and I'm getting some eye rolls and things like that. And so it's like, this is not a hill to die on. You don't want the kids' memories of family dinner table to be conflict. So just trying to move past and say, hey, we'll live to fight another day tomorrow. But we're not going to make a real big issue out of this bad mealtime experience,
Yeah.
I guess.
But there were some. For
Yeah,
sure.
but just like trying to really listen to what they're saying and pick up on, okay, this is where their hearts are at, this is where their minds are at. Let's join them in that, and then maybe after you kind of pick up on what they're talking about and show interest in it, you sort of earn the right of, hey, something I wanted to mention to you guys tonight was this.
Yeah.
How do you, in those moments when there is conflict or a meltdown, how are you able to shift into this mindset of this is not a hill to die on? Because I think as for many parents in that moment, logically, we know this is not a hill to die on. I don't care about whether my son finishes the piece of chicken, but then it just escalates. And before you know it, you're having an argument about finishing the chicken. And so how do you stay calm in those moments and really help you remember the big picture and like what is the hill that you should die on?
Well, I think sometimes you have to, because there's a lot of things going on, right? And several kids are dealing with several different things. So sometimes we have to pick one thing that we're going to work on with everybody. And that's going to be our focus, So there's other peripheral things going on, but we're choosing to work on this. And also sometimes we realized that the kid just needs a moment alone. So we would send kids, if they were losing self-control at the table, hey, why don't you go ahead and go to your room for a few minutes? And sometimes we would just shut it down. Okay, mealtime's over, But yeah. And I guess too, it's kind of knowing what is characterization of the child and what is this is a one-off.
Yeah.
If every time you put food down in front of them, they fell apart, well, that's an issue for them, right? So maybe you're going to stay on that because it's an issue. But if they're having a bad day and they fall apart over the food that day, it's a one-off. So trying to know the kids and what was going on with them, and is this characteristic of them, or is this, just they had a bad day?
And I would say also just like recognizing your own issues. And like, so for me, like I would love to have the respect of the kids. I would love to have some feeling of that I'm in control of this, like what's happening in the house at this point. But sometimes I would just have to put to death my desire for control in that moment at the dinner table,
It's
and
so
put to
hard
death my
though.
desire for respect. Because like if I won't let go of like I'm gonna control this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fix this, or they have to respect me,
Yeah.
that's not a good dynamic. It's
It's just
not
a power
healthy.
struggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so, but sometimes we want our control so much and we want our respect so badly. We want their respect so badly, like tangibly shown in the moment, that we'll fight a battle that we never should have entered into.
Started, yeah, a losing battle for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit more about parenting. What are some of the things that you are most proud of as a parent now that you've got adult kids? And what can you specifically say that you did to cultivate whatever that is that you're proud of?
I think we're super excited about the kids when they would start their first jobs and they would come home almost to a child. All six of them have come back and said something like this: we're just so thankful that you guys taught us how to resolve conflict, because nobody else in our workplace seems to know how to resolve it. And they just kind of freak out when stuff happens and they don't know how to handle it or what to do. What would you say?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Hmm.
And we
Yeah,
had
now
a
I know
lot
what
of
I want to know the
conflict, so
secret.
they had to learn to resolve a
We
lot.
had lots of practice. Yeah.
Lots of practice. So, yeah, it's amazing. Six kids raised in the same home. Um, they are all very different, and but they all could still learn how to resolve conflict within their own way of handling life, personality, and everything. So I do think, yeah, I do think that would be the thing I would be very proud of them about. And they're all comfortable to be an individual.
Hmm.
Once again, six kids, very different. And I'm really grateful that they can do their own thing and be okay with it. You
Yeah.
know,
What did you do to cultivate that?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Entrepreneur
just
spirit, it has been in our family, I guess you would say. At one point, Dave was a church planter, so we were starting from scratch, and the kids jumped in and got involved with all sorts of things, but kind of that entrepreneur spirit.
yeah. There's that, and I think just like recognizing as a parent, like there are lots of different personality types and different ways that people can be wired. I mean, we like the Enneagram model, 9 different Enneagram types, and we see those things so played out in the lives of our kids. And so just recognizing, hey, this is like a lot of this is wiring.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole lot of nature that goes into how a kid turns out. There's a lot of nurture as well, but if you don't respect the part that nature had to play in how your kid is wired, you're not going to nurture them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit and talk about you guys as a couple. What are some of the highs and lows in your relationship right now? Like, what are some of the big areas of struggle, and then what are some of the joys of being empty nesters and just this stage of life that you're in?
Well, yeah, we were 31 and a half years of children in the home. So that, because we had kids later, that was, I was 39 when I had my last baby. I just turned 39. So that season was longer for us than most.
Yeah.
But we are thoroughly enjoying just, it feels like almost like a restart, like here we are. It's almost like being newlyweds again in some ways. So we're really enjoying that. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, can I say this? Like,
Because then we can
she can
edit
edit it
it.
if we want to, right? So just like the other day, she was like, because we just moved into a new house months ago,
Yeah.
so in June, and so and at the same time, our youngest moved out into an apartment.
Right.
So
He's
there was like
20.
empty nest for the first time in 31 and a half years. And so she was like, I'm just loving being in this home alone with you all the time. This is so good. And so all of that cultivating of the relationship along the way paid off, because when the last kid leaves the house, like, you don't look at each other and be like, I'm not sure if like I'm going to be okay with just me and you, because I'm not sure how much I really like you or know you or want to do stuff together with you, because my life has been all about focusing on the kids all these years. And so that's huge. I would say a challenge for us is, and just to give a little backstory, our wiring and our I guess our tendency both to be quite strong in our beliefs and convictions about certain things. So we have some wonderful times of intimacy and just being together, and we love to travel together. We just got back from a 35th anniversary trip, and it was great. But when you have two strong personalities like that coming together, sparks are going to fly and there's going to be conflict, and we know that. So a challenge for us has been knowing when to kind of call it, again, sort of like with the kids, like, when does this become a power struggle? And when do we just kind of need to stop this talk and pick it up at another time, and giving ourselves permission to do that, and to just say, hey, I'm not sure that I can continue in this conversation in a way that honors God. That's really consistent with our values and our faith, is like, if I can't speak to her in a way that honors God and honors her, created in the image of God, then I don't need to keep talking. And so that's an out for me at that point. Then I've got to be faithful to come back to it later on and say, okay, yeah, like I'm ready to talk again, and I can't just like forget to do that. But yeah, just like, because the longer a conflict goes on, there could just be damage that's done, things that are said that are not going to be forgotten. And so just managing that conflict, and again, a key to that has been understanding what are the things that trip us up, what are the things that trigger us as individuals, and recognizing, like, she just said something and I just got triggered, and now what I'm going to do about that. And so understanding what those are, and really doing things on a regular basis. Like, I have meditation sheet every morning. I meditate on about 13 different truth statements, and those are meant to encourage me in my weak areas. Because usually when I start saying things that I shouldn't, or doing things that I shouldn't in my marriage, it's because I'm believing something that I shouldn't believe about the reality of our situation. So just those truth statements, some from scripture, some from just like things that we know to be true, observable, that's helpful. And I'm sorry, Sandy's been waiting so patiently.
Oh, no, you're good. So I guess, kind of in summary of what Dave said, knowing our own weaknesses help better really than anything, because you want to be getting along with your spouse, you want things to be going well, but sometimes there's something I want more, and it's something usually that is something I'm believing that is not true or not balanced, which spurs me on to stay in the conflict. So knowing ourselves better is really a huge key to resolving conflict better. It's almost like every conflict that we have that can, we're two people. Wouldn't you say, if you ask us a question, 98% of the time we would respond with almost the same thoughts, answers?
Yeah, we're very unified in our approach to life.
Yeah, but it's those few percent that where we're different. So we're going to have conflict. We're going to have sparks. We get really concerned when we talk to talk to couples that say, we never disagree about anything. We never have any problems. We're like, oh, dang,
Yeah, I was talking to a guy not long ago, and he was like, I just really don't feel like I have much intimacy with my wife. And I'm like, talking about sexual intimacy, and he's like, well, that's a little part of it, but really the bigger part is relational intimacy and emotional intimacy. And I said, do you guys ever fight? And he said, no, we never fight. Like, you're going to have to learn to fight more if you're going to have more intimacy. Because what that tells me is you are not sharing your real thoughts and feelings with each other, or you'd be having some conflict. And that same dynamic is why you're not having intimacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good. What do you tell couples who there's one person in the couple that is a learner and wants to improve and wants to work on the relationship, and they're just struggling because they feel like the other person in the relationship is not as into the development work and the learning and the growth, or maybe even going to therapy? How do you have couples navigate that?
You want to speak to that?
So, learning to speak the truth in love and have low, I hate to say have low expectations, but I have to do what's right and speak what's right and say what's right, regardless of what he does. And I'm blessed to have one that wants to come near me all the time, but in solving things. But if your spouse does not care, does not want to grow, does not, you still have to go, you still have to grow. And sometimes they can be changed even by seeing your contentment in your own growth, and you're still reaching out to them in a kind and loving way, even though they're unwilling. So that can be used in a mighty way for them to watch. And also, sometimes not to compare children and adults, but yeah, to compare children and adults. Sometimes with a kid that's pitching a fit, right? Throwing down, flailing on the floor. If you walk out of the room, they recover, right? And they all of a sudden they're okay. Why? Because nobody is watching them have their fit. So sometimes when a spouse will antagonize another spouse, if your reaction is one of, hey, that's their problem, they're treating me that way, I can be fine, then that can speak volumes. All of a sudden my bad behavior it's not rocking their world. What's going on with them? So that can lead to them asking questions and maybe even being willing to get help.
Yeah. And we're certainly people that understand that sometimes there are very legitimate reasons and grounds for divorce. We greatly value marriage. But, unless one of those conditions is met, the spouse that's having trouble bringing the other spouse along into learning and to growing and all of that, I would say it's just going to go better for that spouse who's really trying if they really focus on learning contentment in that situation. Because if you're not going to divorce and you're not going to be content, it's going to be a pretty miserable household.
Yeah. Okay, talk to me about your ability to juggle the family with all of the professional things that you guys are doing, your work. Like what has that, we try really hard to not use the word balance because I don't really believe in balance. Like some days you're going to be thriving at work and some days you're going to be thriving at parenting, and rarely is it both at the same time. So how have you navigated those waters in a way where you've always made sure that family was your number one team, your number one priority?
I go back to the routine. I think that's huge, but also boundaries. When our kids were growing up, so this was not as big of a deal, right? The just people being on their phone all the time. I think I'm grateful for that. It was more in the last couple of kids, but not as much before. But boundaries with leaving work at work, boundaries with at this time I'm going to put my phone away, boundaries with vacation time, and just realizing that we need that rest, that day of rest, that recreation. So boundaries and schedule have been huge for us. Schedule and routine. Yeah.
And then I would also say just being super intentional with the time that you do have with your kids. Maybe your time is limited, but being super intentional with that time and really focusing on building the relationship with them during that time. Because I've known some people that spend a lot of time with their kids, but they don't have a trusting relationship with their kids. Their kids don't really trust them, and maybe they don't really know their kids. So, but the time that you have, invest it in building that relationship of trust between you and your kids. And your kids are never going to tell you everything. That's just, I mean, maybe in a rare occasion that would be. So it's not so much about, yeah, I want them to be I want to be the person that they tell everything to. That may happen with some of your kids, may not happen with others, but just generally speaking, really focused on the trusting aspect of the relationship, because that's more like the quality time than the quantity time, right? It's like if you don't have quantity time, then especially focus on making the time that you do have quality. And I think the essence of a great relationship between parents and kids, or husbands and wives, or whatever, the essence is trust.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to make sure that work doesn't consume you?
Be real with yourself about how much time you're spending in work. There was a season, can I tell this?
Yeah, that's great.
There was a season back
It's probably been 20 years ago.
20.
I was overworking.
Yeah, Dave was overworking, and he didn't realize it because of phone calls and emails and this and that. And at the time, he was pastoring that 450 member church, and we lived in a small enough community that he was pastor at the ball field, at McDonald's, at the doctor's. I mean, people knew him, recognized him, and kind of owned part of him, per se. And so at one point we were talking, I'm like, you do not realize how much you're working. So for 2 weeks, he wrote down all of his work, his phone calls, his emails, his everything. And after that, he realized, oh, I'm working more. So then through the course of that time, we came up with a number that we thought was appropriate for him. And then he tried his best to stick to that number. Sometimes we go over, but going back to kind of just our whole motto in parenting, marriage, and everything really is, what is it characterized by? You're going to have those terrible days. You're going to have the times when you're overworked. But what is normal, So being aware of how much you're working is a huge step.
Yeah. So we agreed on a number, and I'll just say it was 40-something hours a week that we agreed on. And I think for the last 25 years, 20 years probably, I've been characterized by working that many hours a week. So, but you just got to be honest with yourself and evaluate honestly and accurately what you're really doing, come to an agreement about what it needs to look like, and then stick to it.
Yeah.
And is that a number that you reevaluate every year, or is it just that's the number and that's been the number, and even now that you guys are empty nesters, you think that number will hold steady?
So for me, a part of the reason I came to the number that I did, it was like just practically having enough time with family was a big consideration. Another thing was wanting to model for other people what would be good for them to try to do. So in our particular context, that involved, some thinking that I had to do to decide what's that number for me? What does it look like? And so I think there's probably a range of what it could look like for any given person. But certainly there's an upper limit where if you work any more than that, you just can't really be there for your family the way that you need to.
As far as us being empty nesters, it's a whole new ball game, because 5 years ago we joined this ministry that we serve with, and we work together a lot. So it's a whole different really vibe now, and
so the challenge is like cutting off the work talk, since we work
that's
together.
The hardest thing.
Cutting off the work talk at 5:30 has been our goal typically. So, but we don't always do it.
No, and sometimes I stink at it, sometimes he stinks at it, and I've gotten better about when I think about a work thing to pick up my phone, jot a note, talk to Dave about,
Yeah.
and put it aside. So yeah.
But, and I'll just add this, like what I mentioned about like wanting control and respect at the family dinner table and that causing me to make some unwise decisions sometimes. Those same two things come up over and over again in other areas of my life, and work would be one of those. It's like I want people to respect me. I want people to know that I do a good job, that I'm not the slacker, that I'm not the weak link in the chain, and to have some control over my life. And many times, like what you do in your work is a big component of how much control you have. So whenever I'm not doing well, like with just being okay with not having all the control that I want, and okay with not having all the respect or all the approval from others that I might want, then I do better. But it's when those desires are really ruling my life that I make mistakes in work, in how much I work.
That's good. So you guys have been working with couples for a while and, walking on this journey with them. What trends have you noticed as far as struggles? Is there something that's been happening recently that you've really been spending a lot of time with couples in this one area?
I think one is navigating in-law relationships. People just feel a lot more free than they used to say, I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to cancel, and sometimes the person that you want to cancel the most is an in-law, or somebody in the extended family. And so there's one couple in particular where the husband's mom was just really being obnoxious and controlling over them, over the grandkids, like all the things, and like helping them navigate that without canceling the
Yeah.
the grandparents. It seems like it's just a little bit faddish to, well, hey, I just told them, not talking to you anymore, and that's it. That's our boundary. I think people are making a mistake by doing that too quickly.
And conflict resolution is still a big, huge thing because everybody brings in what they learned from their family growing up, and that's kind of how they resolve conflict. And then so you have the avoiders and the ones that run to conflict and the ones that want to resolve. And so that's a big issue that we're seeing as couples get older. We're seeing that it's like they had their children, and their children became the center of their universe, and everything poured into the kids. And when the kid was gone, they looked at each other and realized they didn't even know each other or like each other or have common interests. So older couples, that's still a huge thing. They don't have a friendship. They don't enjoy each other's company. And maybe they never really had it, but just got busy with the kids. So, yeah, that's a big problem.
So, Dave, going back to what you said about the cancel culture, and then Sandy, what you were talking about earlier with boundaries, how do you coach somebody who is struggling with knowing where the line is, like between setting a healthy boundary and canceling, right? Like, at what point do you walk away from that relationship and just say, okay, I've done what I should do, what I want to do, and now to protect my own mental health, I'm going to walk away from this relationship?
Yeah.
Whether it's in-laws or
Yeah.
a marriage, right? Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we believe really strongly that, like, for this season of our lives and for every season of our lives, like, God put us here for a purpose. There are things that He wants us to do, ways that He wants us to do that, and family is certainly a huge part of that. And so, if I can't, because of an in-law issue, I can't raise my family and love my wife the way that I need to, then there need to be stricter boundaries. Like when it gets to the point where someone else's wrongdoing or over involvement or controlling nature or criticism is significantly affecting our ability to raise our family and do our marriage, do what God has called us to do, then there need to be stricter boundaries. And the ultimate of that would be just cancel, just saying, until further notice, there's not going to be any communication here. But we know some situations where that needed to happen.
One thing that we've seen happen over and over in marriages is we'll say there's a controlling spouse that's unhealthy and controlling, and the other spouse that has just taken it and taken it and taken it. That when that spouse starts speaking the truth and walking in truth, the controlling spouse will voluntarily walk away to the point to where, this one doesn't have to do anything, So.
Yeah, and this is related to cancel culture and boundaries, and it's also related to trending things. So, like, talking about narcissism is super trendy right now, right? But there's been a really good side of that. I mean, like, it's good that narcissistic people are being called out, and so there are more marriages, and more commonly, like our experience has been more commonly, it's the husband that has struggled with that. But just like wives getting an awareness, or spouses, I'm dealing with some guys right now where their wife seems to be rather narcissistic. And so just that coming up onto the radar and realizing, hey, like, this is not okay. What they've been doing, and all of these, characteristics of what a narcissist is, like, my spouse has 5 of the 9, so they like clinically qualify as a narcissist, like they win the prize. Like, so this is really not healthy, and this really needs to be addressed. And so some people are really getting empowered, some wives, some husbands, to not be okay with that anymore.
What's one piece of advice that you guys have for other couples that are navigating family life, work life? What's the one thing that if they did this, they could live more intentionally, more purposefully?
Yeah, just understanding what your priorities are, what your values are, defining very clearly, these are our family values, this is what's important to us. Everything else is going to fall out naturally, in a good way, from establishing those priorities and those values clearly, and then asking yourself the question about every single thing that comes up where a decision needs to be made. How does this align with our values? How does this align with our priorities?
Yeah, that's good.
And what new projects are you guys working on? Just before we wrap up, like what's on the horizon for you guys? What's next?
Well, recently, you mean work-wise or
Anything? Yeah.
family-wise?
What can we expect to see from you guys over the next 10, 15 years?
Oh, goodness, 10, 15 years. Hopefully some grandchildren.
Yeah, that's exciting to think about.
Hopefully some grands. No, but our organization that we serve in is growing leaps and bounds. So as it gets bigger, it's having to get smaller and some more processes in place. And it's an exciting time to be a part of our organization. As far as us, as far as we go, we're always kind of planning our next beach experience sometime down the road, because we love to go to the beach. And so we're always dreaming about that.
Yeah, we were talking just last night about where we'd like to go next. And again, that's along the lines of like nurturing your relationship.
Yeah.
Just like let that become part of your DNA. So that's something that we think about quite a bit.
Where do you guys want to go next?
We're really partial to Mexico and just the Riviera Maya, Cancun area. That's just, for us, just getting to chill, read a book, spend time together. We do serve quite a lot, and we serve a lot of people. And so to get to be served for a little while is really nice. And so, yeah, we love that.
And just being disconnected. I mean, really just, we put our phone on Do Not Disturb. Our kids are our favorites, so they'll ring through in case of emergency. And other than that, we disconnect. And we're so bad. We're not of this generation. We don't take many pictures, hardly any at all when we're away together, because we're just enjoying the moment. So we don't even take photos really. So yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me what you guys are working on next and how our listeners could get involved if they're curious.
Yeah. So a big part of what we're doing right now is just as our organization grows, we're helping it grow. We do quite a bit of recruiting and interviewing of new leaders. And again, we're looking for healthy leaders who can guide other leaders into healthy ministry, healthy service. And so, we look for people that have been able to thrive in their own capacities, organizations, churches, and that have a heart to shepherd other people in that journey and to guide other people into healthy ministry and work. So
if they have at least 7 years of full-time ministry experience, and they have a heart, because in ministry, not everybody, you have your administrators, you have your outreach people, but then you have the people that just want to take care of other people, and that's what we're looking for. And then we're always taking more people to care for as well. So
yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to hear about your beach vacation.
All right.
Thank
you,
you,
Ann.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for tuning in to Mpowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them, because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.